and welcome to this special downward facing dog tutorial where we're going to work through a little bit of a warm-up before we go through some of the different modifications and variations of downward facing dog and kind of show you some of the common things that can go wrong and how to correct them. So downward facing dog, you've probably heard of this pose. In fact, it's definitely one of the most common yoga poses. So what is all the fuss about? Well, it's a real whole body workout. So it stretches and strengthens pretty much your whole body. So lots of different muscles kind of working and lengthening as part of the pose. And it's really good at boosting circulation, boosting your mood, boosting energy. And it's a real go-to for a lot of yoga teachers. It's also really good for your posture and alignment. So one of the things that we're going to be focusing on is keeping a really straight spine, and it's really at the heart of the pose. But to get started, let's do a little bit of a warm-up. So let's start by rolling our wrists one way a few times. So making circles with your wrists and rolling the other way. Beautiful. And don't worry if you've got any clicks, as long as it doesn't hurt, it's okay. And then gently coming into an all fours position, so finding your wrists underneath your shoulders, knees underneath your hips, spreading those fingers nice and wide, a little bend to the elbows. I'd like you to press into the hands, push into the shoulders, bringing the shoulder blades apart, tucking the tummy in and tucking the tailbone under. So finding your angry cat pose. Pressing the tops of the feet into the floor. And then tucking the tailbone, untucking, coming through, bringing the shoulder blades back together. And then working your way back. And continuing this a couple of times, so perhaps bringing your breath in. So inhaling as you come into your angry cat and exhaling in your cow. Beautiful. So continue to work with that. And then gently we're going to now show you some of the different ways we can do downward facing dog. So if you've got a chair handy or somewhere in the house, perhaps a sofa, then it's a good idea to be using that. So effectively you're looking to have it so it's straight on with the top of your mat. And then you can either press your hands into the top or grip either side of it. And what we're trying to do is just find the shape of downward facing dog from a standing position. So I'm going to walk my feet back until my spine's roughly in a nice kind of straight line there. And then pushing those hips up and back at the same time. So I can really play with where my feet are positioned. I can keep a bend in my knee, but I'm looking to create, if you can see, a straight line with my spine all the way from my fingertips to my bum. So pushing those hips up and back. And this is really the start. So using that chair, walking in, walking out. And you can do this motion, so coming back in when you're ready and rolling yourself back up. You can continue working with that, so if you're still trying to find that shape, a great way is to continue working with your chair. You're not having to put any kind of real weight into your hands as part of this version. And actually, if you've got other stuff going on, and you're not feeling the mat version of the pose, this is a great alternative. Coming back in, and then gently bring yourself back forward again. Curling yourself back up. Whew. See where you get to there. So that was version 1. And then the next version I'd like you to do, which is the full version actually. We're going to start from our all fours position. So again, finding the knees underneath the hips, the wrists underneath the shoulders, and finding that kind of secure base with that all fours position. From there, I'd like you to bring your hands one palm distance forward and then one hand distance out to the side, so slightly wider than your shoulders. That just gives you a little bit of extra space. You can have them shoulder distance apart, but you may find that gives you less space and can feel a little bit tight on the shoulders. So give yourself a little bit more space. So edge those hands out just a little bit so they're a little bit wider than your shoulders. And then you're going to tuck your toes under, and then you're going to bring so watching where my bum's going, and I'm bringing it back and up as I bend my knees and spring up. Again, trying to find this straight spine. So I'm not worried at all about how bent my legs are here. This is very much a downward facing dog. Over time, I'm going to work to bring those heels towards the ground. But at the moment, I really want you to focus on keeping this straight spine. So just holding it there, just checking you haven't locked out your elbows. And then gently, when you're ready, lowering the knees to the ground, untucking the toes, and coming back into a child's pose. Resting there for a little while. Just returning to your breath. And then when you're ready, rolling yourself up. And I'm just going to show you we're going to do this again, but I'm going to show you a couple of the kind of common mistakes that are made with downward facing dog, and kind of how you can potentially tweak your pose to avoid it. So one of those is, so again, coming back into our position, finding those hands, tucking under. One of the most common things to do is when you're kind of making this effort to straight push your legs back, I'm losing all the integrity of my spine. So I end up with this kind of almost a plank, but kind of half plank kind of thing going on. So in order to correct that, I'm going to bend my legs and really push my hips up and back, focusing on that. Again, just really focused on that spine. Perhaps tucking in my tummy a little bit can help with the alignment. So that's one common thing. Another common thing is locking the elbows out, and particularly if you're very flexible, that can be a thing. So again, just checking you've got a bit of bend, a bit of give. And then gently coming down. And again, coming back into your child's pose when you're ready. The other thing that people do is they often put all the weight in the heel of the hand, so the bottom of the hand, rather than spreading it out across the whole of the fingertips. So whether you've got that in mind, you may want to bring something like, you can play with this, but you can bring a couple of blocks or maybe a couple of books, bring them underneath your hands. Ideally either height. I've gone for ones that are not, so do not do it like this. So again, bringing the heel of your hand there and pressing up and into your downward facing dog. That can help you to take a little bit of pressure off the wrist. But otherwise, if you're doing it without the blocks, the main thing to focus on is really spreading those fingers nice and wide and really focusing on grounding into the whole of your hand. So rather than the wrist. So checking again that weight is spread evenly as you're pushing up and back. It's a delicate balance. And then one of the things you can do when you're in the pose is walking your heels down. So you can then bend one knee and straighten the other, and that starts to bend that leg out. So it starts to stretch those hamstrings to help you start easing those heels down just towards the ground. And gently coming down, bending those knees, untucking the toes, coming to child's pose. And you can come to child's pose whenever you like in class. So if you're finding it downward dog particularly strenuous, because to be honest, It's marketed sometimes as a resting pose, but for most of us, it is not a resting pose. Then feel free at any time to come down and find your child's pose. So that was our downward facing dog tutorial. I hope you enjoyed it, and I look forward to seeing you again soon.